Ethan Grayson had never imagined he would be standing on the bridge of a starship, looking at a planet that seemed alive. Its surface shimmered with green and blue, unlike anything on Earth. This was Erendor Prime, the capital world of the Lyrian Empire. Ethan, a human explorer and diplomat, had been sent here for a mission he thought would be simple: negotiate trade rights and gather intelligence. But he had no idea how quickly his life was about to change. The Lyrians were a proud, ancient species. Tall, elegant, with translucent skin that reflected light in strange colors, and eyes so bright they seemed to see everything. Their society was organized, disciplined, and ruled by the Council of Stars. And now, according to the Council, Ethan was to be married. It had happened suddenly. During his first meeting with the Lyrian Council, a princess named Lyra had appeared. Her presence was commanding, yet there was a calmness in her that made the room feel smaller, as if all eyes were drawn to her. Ethan had been taken aback when she had declared, in perfect common tongue, that they were to be wed. "I am aware you are human," she said, her voice melodic but firm, "and that humans are free by nature. But the Council has spoken. The alliance between our species requires this union." Ethan had opened his mouth, ready to refuse, but found no words. The Council had already begun murmuring among themselves. Their law was strict. Anyone who ignored a royal decree risked dishonor, or worse. Ethan had faced danger before, but never like this. This was not about combat or survival. This was about his life being bound to a stranger he barely knew. I can't just," Ethan stammered. Lyra's eyes glinted. "You can, and you will. The ceremony is in 3 hours. 3 hours." That was all the time he had to prepare for a lifetime he didn't choose. Ethan's mind raced. He tried to think logically, but the beauty and strangeness of Lyra's world distracted him. The corridors of the council palace shimmered with light that seemed alive. The walls were made of crystal-like material, reflecting colors that humans had no names for. The air smelled faintly sweet, like flowers that existed only in imagination, and everywhere he looked, Lyrians moved with grace and precision, their eyes observing him with curiosity and judgment. He was escorted to a chamber where he could change into the ceremonial attire. The fabric was unlike anything he had seen. Soft, yet strong, and glowing, faintly. He felt like a puppet being dressed for a play he did not understand. Lyra entered quietly, her presence filling the room even without words. She did not smile, but she did not frown either. She simply watched him. "You are nervous," she said softly. Ethan swallowed hard. "I would be lying if I said I wasn't." She tilted her head. "It is natural, but remember, this is not about you alone. Your people will be safer if the alliance succeeds." He did not answer. He was not sure if he was more frustrated by the situation or by the fact that this alien woman could make him feel so small with just a few words. When they were brought to the ceremony, Ethan was surprised. He had imagined a formal, cold event, with everyone staring and judging. But what he saw was a mix of tradition, beauty, and something almost alive. Lyrians from every part of the empire were present. Their eyes shimmered with curiosity. The air was filled with a soft hum of energy, almost like a heartbeat. The officiant, an elder Lyrian named Kale, began the ritual. He spoke in the Lyrian language, but Lyra's translator device allowed Ethan to understand. The words were about unity, protection, and balance between species. Ethan listened, trying to focus, but his mind wandered to the enormity of what was happening. When it was his turn, he felt Lyra's hand touch his. Her skin was cool but firm, and the glow from her veins made him almost dizzy. He expected her to be cold or distant, but she simply looked at him with calm certainty. "You will learn," she said softly, as if answering a question he had not yet asked. That strength is not always shown in battle. Sometimes, it is shown in understanding, patience, and courage. Ethan was taken aback. There was no arrogance in her voice, no demand, just certainty. For a moment, he wondered if he had misjudged her. The ceremony ended with a simple gesture. A ring placed on his hand, and a matching ring on hers. The rings glowed faintly, a symbol of the bond that now existed between them. Ethan felt the weight of it immediately, both literal and figurative. He was bound to Lyra, whether he wanted it or not. Afterward, they were escorted to a private suite aboard the starship that would take them to her homeworld. Ethan sat down, staring at the rings, feeling a mix of disbelief, frustration, and something he did not yet understand. Lyra remained standing, observing him. "Do not misunderstand," she said. "I did not ask for this either, but I intend to make it bearable." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Bearable? That's generous." She gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "I am not known for false generosity. You will see soon enough." Over the next few hours, Ethan tried to process everything. He explored the suite, which was a mix of alien elegance and technology beyond his imagination. There were devices that could create light, change the atmosphere, and even simulate the sensations of an outdoor environment. He had never seen anything like it. Yet, despite the luxury, he felt a pang of loneliness. He had left Earth thinking this mission would be routine, but now he was married to an alien woman, traveling to a world he knew nothing about, surrounded by people whose culture he barely understood. Lyra finally spoke again as they prepared for the journey. "Ethan, I do not expect you to like this immediately, but you must trust me in the days to come. Our survival, and the survival of our people, depends on it." He nodded slowly. There was no choice but to trust her, at least for now. Still, he could not shake the feeling that his life had shifted in ways he could not yet comprehend. As the ship lifted off the ground, leaving Arendor Prime behind, Ethan looked out the window. The planet glowed beneath them, vast and beautiful, yet full of unknown dangers. He turned to look at Lyra, who stood calmly by the window, her eyes reflecting the stars outside. For the first time, Ethan realized that this marriage might not only change his life, it could change the fate of humans and Lyrians alike. But he had no idea how, or if he was ready for it. The hum of the starship filled the silence. Ethan clenched his hands, staring at the glowing ring on his finger. Somewhere in the distance, a part of him feared the unknown. Another part wondered if maybe, just maybe, this alien woman could surprise him in ways he never expected. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Grayson felt that the journey ahead was not entirely his own. It belonged to both him and Lyra. Ethan had spent the first day aboard the starship trying to adjust. He walked through corridors that shimmered with soft light, touched panels that responded to his presence, and peeked out of windows that showed the endless stars stretching into darkness. Yet, no matter how strange or magnificent the ship was, he could not shake the weight of his new reality. He was married to an alien woman, against his will. Lyra, however, seemed completely at ease. She moved through the ship with grace, her presence quiet but commanding. She would occasionally glance at Ethan, her bright eyes assessing him without judgment, and yet somehow he felt studied. It was unnerving. The first evening, as they sat for a meal in the observation room, Ethan tried to make conversation. "So, what happens when we reach your homeworld?" he asked, pushing a plate of unfamiliar food around. Lyra's gaze remained calm. "We meet the council. We discuss our roles. We ensure that our alliance remains secure." Ethan frowned. "That sounds formal, cold even." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "You underestimate the importance of preparation. The Council expects unity. Weakness will be punished. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had faced danger in the past combat zones. Unstable planets. Hostile aliens. But nothing had made him feel quite so powerless as this forced marriage. He tried to convince himself that this was temporary, that when the mission was over, he could return to Earth and his old life. But the truth gnawed at him. He was not in control. Not here. Not with her. That night, Ethan retired to his quarters, expecting to be left alone. But Lyra appeared outside the doorway. "I thought you might need guidance," she said simply. Ethan blinked. "Guidance? I don't need—" "Perhaps not," she interrupted softly. "But you also do not yet know how to survive here." He frowned, still annoyed. Lyra smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "We shall see." Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed along the walls, and a low hum filled the corridors. Ethan instinctively reached for the panel beside him, but Lyra was already moving. "Follow me," she commanded. The next moments were a blur. Ethan had seen ships attacked before, but never from inside one. Alien drones, small and fast, darted through the hallways, attempting to infiltrate the ship's systems. The human security protocols were fast, but they were no match for the speed and intelligence of Lyra's enemies. Ethan hesitated, unsure what to do. Lyra glanced at him once, a spark of impatience in her eyes, and then she moved. With a speed that seemed impossible, she disabled one drone with a single touch. The creature sparked and fell silent. Another drone approached, and she twisted, grabbed a small device from her belt, and sent a pulse that rendered it useless. All the while, Ethan watched in shock, realizing that this woman, who had seemed calm and elegant, was also a fighter and expert in her own right. "You need to trust me," she said briefly, almost to herself. Ethan nodded, unable to find his voice. For the first time since this marriage had begun, he felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps she could protect him. Perhaps together they could survive this. They moved quickly down the corridors, Lyra guiding him silently, her movements precise and calculated. She communicated without words, using small gestures, glances, and subtle signals. Ethan realized that her culture had taught her to think in ways humans could barely comprehend, anticipating danger before it appeared, understanding motives before words were spoken. Finally, they reached the control room. Lyra did not hesitate. She moved to the main console, her hands flying over panels and screens, and within moments, the drones were disabled, their threat neutralized. Ethan stared at her in awe. I don't understand. How did you—" Lyra's eyes met his. "You will learn, but only if you watch, listen, and trust." The attack had lasted no more than 10 minutes, but it left Ethan shaken. Not because of the danger, but because he realized something crucial. Lyra had saved his life. And in doing so, she had changed the rules of their relationship. He could no longer think of her as just an alien stranger. She was competent, capable, and unafraid. She had acted before he even knew what was happening. Later, when the alarms were silenced and the ship returned to normal operations, Ethan could not sleep. He paced the room, thinking about the events of the night. He had been ready to dismiss her, ready to resent her for forcing him into this marriage. But now, he felt a spark of respect and confusion. When he finally found her, she was standing by the observation window, looking out at the stars. "You are thinking too much," she said calmly. Ethan frowned. "Am I? I can't stop thinking about what happened. You saved my life." Lyra did not turn to him. "And I would do it again. You are part of this mission, part of this alliance. Your survival is my responsibility, as much as it is yours." Ethan felt a strange warmth at her words. Responsibility. Care. He had expected cold formality, and instead he found concern. not for himself personally, but for their shared goal. "Why me?" he asked quietly. Lyra finally turned to him, her eyes calm and unreadable. "Because you were chosen. And because strength is not always physical. Sometimes it is the mind, the heart, and the courage to follow where others hesitate." Ethan looked at her, seeing her not as an alien, but as a person with purpose, intelligence, and dedication. He still did not fully trust her. But for the first time, he felt the beginnings of a connection. The next day, Lyra took him through the ship, showing him the systems, the defensive protocols, and the alien technology that powered the starship. Ethan tried to follow, but the complexity was overwhelming. Instead, she guided him patiently, showing small, manageable steps, explaining things in ways he could understand. "You will learn," she said simply, "and you will see that humans are capable of adaptation beyond what even we expect." Ethan thought about her words. He had always believed humans were resilient, but seeing Lyra in action had given him a new perspective. Perhaps humanity could survive anywhere. Perhaps, even among the stars, humans could stand shoulder to shoulder with species far older and more advanced than themselves. By the time they approached Lyra's homeworld, Ethan had begun to trust her. Not fully, not yet, but enough to know that together, they could face whatever awaited them. Her first move had changed everything. What he had expected to be a forced, uncomfortable journey had become something else. A partnership, a challenge, and perhaps, if he was honest with himself, the beginnings of understanding and respect. As the planet grew larger in the viewports, Ethan realized that the real test was about to begin. Not just surviving the journey, but surviving the political, cultural, and personal challenges of Lyra's world. And for the first time, he did not feel entirely alone. Lyra stood beside him, calm and resolute. "Are you ready?" she asked. Ethan took a deep breath. He was not sure what ready meant anymore. But he nodded. I'll try." Lyra's lips curved in a faint smile. "Good. Trying is the first step. And remember, Ethan, your first move is always the most important." He looked at her, understanding for the first time that her words were not just advice, they were a promise. She had made the first move. She had saved him, guided him, and forced him to see the value of trust and partnership. And now, it was his turn to respond. The starship descended toward Lyra's world, its engines humming softly. The planet below was vast, beautiful, and filled with unknown dangers. But for the first time, Ethan felt a spark of confidence. He would face whatever came next, not alone, but with Lyra at his side. And in that moment, he realized something extraordinary. The alien woman he had married against his will had already changed everything. Ethan had expected landing on Lyra's homeworld to be simple, but the moment the starship touched down, he realized he had underestimated the challenge. The planet was vast, covered with forests that glowed faintly at night, rivers that shimmered with colors he had no names for, and mountains that stretched beyond the clouds. The air smelled fresh but carried a faint, unfamiliar tang, and even walking felt different. The gravity was slightly stronger, making each step heavier than on Earth. Lyra led him down the gangway with quiet confidence. Ethan followed, adjusting to the rhythm of her stride. The Lyrian guards lined the streets, tall and elegant, their eyes alert. Humans would have felt nervous under such scrutiny, but Lyra moved as though she belonged completely. And by standing beside her, Ethan felt a fraction of that confidence. "You will be tested," she said softly, as if reading his thoughts. "Do not take offense. This is how our people determine trust." Ethan swallowed. "Tested? How?" "You will see soon enough," she replied, her tone neutral. "The Council expects strength, courage, and wisdom. You must show all three." Their first stop was the central hall of the Lyrian Council. It was a magnificent structure, with ceilings high above that seemed to touch the sky, and walls made of translucent crystal. Light passed through the walls in a way that created dancing patterns across the floor. Ethan's human mind struggled to process it all, but Lyra's calm presence grounded him. The council members were already assembled. Tall, radiant, and composed, they regarded Ethan with curiosity and mild suspicion. Whispers filled the room, their language strange, but the translator allowed him to understand. "Human," said Kale, the elder Lyrian who had officiated their marriage. "You have entered a world far different from your own. You must prove that you are capable of understanding, respect, and courage. Only then can this union truly serve its purpose." Ethan nodded, trying to steady his voice. "I will do my best." The first test was simple in description but challenging in execution. Navigate the Forest of Whispers, a vast and ancient area known for its shifting terrain and unpredictable wildlife. The Lyrians had grown up here, but for a human, every step was uncertain. Paths that seemed safe could suddenly shift, rivers could change course, and the smallest misstep could lead to danger. Lyra led him into the forest, moving with ease. Ethan struggled to match her pace, his human legs unaccustomed to the changes in gravity and terrain. The moment he stumbled, Lyra was there, steadying him with a touch. Her hand was cool but firm, and Ethan realized she was not just guiding him, she was teaching him to adapt. "You must learn to feel the world," she said. "Not just see it. Listen, observe, and anticipate." Ethan tried to follow her instructions. He noticed subtle signs, a shift in the wind, a ripple in the river, a faint rustle in the trees. Slowly, he began to understand the rhythm of the forest. It was not enough to react, he had to predict. As they moved deeper, a creature emerged from the shadows. It was unlike anything Ethan had seen. With glimmering scales and eyes that reflected light like mirrors, it hissed, low and threatening. Ethan froze, but Lyra did not hesitate. She raised her hand, and the creature paused, recognizing her presence. "It will not harm you," she said calmly, "but you must respect it. Do not move too quickly or too loudly." Ethan followed her instructions, his heart pounding. The creature watched them for a moment, then turned and disappeared into the shadows. He exhaled slowly, realizing how much he had underestimated this world and how much he needed Lyra's guidance. The next challenge came unexpectedly. A small bridge over a rushing river had collapsed, leaving only narrow, slippery rocks to cross. Ethan hesitated. One wrong step could send him tumbling into the water below. Lyra extended her hand, her expression calm. "Trust me," she said. Ethan nodded and took her hand. Step by step, they moved across the rocks. When he nearly slipped, Lyra's grip tightened, steadying him. By the time they reached solid ground, Ethan felt a surge of gratitude and something else he did not yet name. Respect, perhaps, or admiration. He was beginning to see her not just as an alien ally, but as a person whose skills and courage were extraordinary. By the time they reached the center of the forest, the sun was setting, casting the landscape in shades of gold and violet. Lyra stopped and looked at him. "You have done well," she said. "Most humans would not have survived this far." Ethan smiled, though he was exhausted. "I couldn't have done it without you." Lyra's eyes softened slightly. "Perhaps, but you also learned. That is important. Strength is not only about survival, it is about understanding, adapting, and growing." Ethan thought about her words. He had always believed strength was physical muscles, speed, endurance, but she had shown him something different. Courage could be mental, wisdom could be a weapon, and trust could be just as powerful as any tool or weapon. That night, as they set up camp in the forest, Ethan watched Lyra move silently, preparing the area, analyzing the environment, and ensuring safety. He tried to sleep, but his mind was busy replaying the events of the day. He realized that he had underestimated humans before he had believed they were fragile compared to species like the Lyrians. But now, he saw a new perspective. Humans had potential, resourcefulness, and the ability to grow quickly when faced with challenges. Lyra finally spoke, breaking the quiet night. "You are learning faster than I expected." Ethan turned to her. "I am?" She nodded. "You are adapting. That is the first sign of true strength. Do not dismiss your own capabilities." He looked down at his hands, realizing how much he had grown in just a single day. He had faced danger, learned new ways of thinking, and survived challenges he would have failed at before. And he had done it alongside Lyra. Over the next several days, their journey continued. They faced more tests, climbing jagged cliffs to retrieve rare minerals, navigating caverns with unstable ceilings, and negotiating with creatures that communicated through thought rather than sound. Each challenge was difficult, but together, they found solutions. Ethan began to notice something remarkable. Lyra did not just lead him, she encouraged him to take initiative. She guided, but she allowed him to make decisions, even mistakes. Each time, she corrected gently, explained clearly, and never belittled him. "You must learn to trust yourself as much as you trust me," she said one evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the horizon. Ethan nodded, realizing the truth in her words. He had always relied on his instincts, but in a world so different from his own, instinct alone was not enough. He had to learn, adapt, and grow. And with Lyra's guidance, he was beginning to do just that. By the time they reached the outskirts of her capital city, Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment he had never known. He had survived the forest, faced challenges beyond his imagination, and begun to bridge the gap between human and Lyrian understanding. Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "You have done well, Ethan. The council will see your growth, and they will respect it. But remember, this is only the beginning. The real challenges await within the city walls." Ethan took a deep breath. He was no longer the reluctant, uncertain human who had been married against his will. He was learning, adapting, and growing. And alongside Lyra, he began to understand that this journey could lead to something greater than he had ever imagined. As the city lights shimmered below, Ethan realized that the forced marriage had become more than a political alliance. It had become a partnership, a challenge, and perhaps a chance to discover the strength he had never known existed within himself. For the first time, he felt a spark of hope. With Lyra by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. Ethan stood at the gates of Lyra's capital city, his heart pounding with a mix of nerves and anticipation. The city sprawled before him like nothing he had ever seen, towers of crystalline glass rising into the clouds, bridges that glowed faintly with energy, and streets alive with movement. Lyrians moved with grace, their eyes shimmering as they observed him, judging, curious, cautious. He had faced challenges in the forests, crossed rivers, climbed cliffs, and survived the unknowns of a planet so alien it could have been a dream. But now, the real test awaited. The Council. The political leaders of the Lyrian Empire, the very beings who had decreed his marriage, would examine him closely. Every word, every action, every gesture could determine not only his own fate, but the success of the alliance between humans and Lyrians. Lyra walked beside him, calm as ever. Her presence was reassuring. She had taught him to anticipate dangers, to adapt, and to trust himself. But the council was different. The council would not only test his abilities, they would probe his intentions, his understanding, his respect for their ways. "Do not let them intimidate you," Lyra whispered. "Remember, you have already proven yourself in the forests. You have learned and adapted. That is the first sign of strength." Ethan nodded, trying to steady his breathing. He remembered the forest, the creatures, The narrow crossings, the challenges that had forced him to rely on both instinct and instruction. He had survived because he had trusted Lyra. Yes, but also because he had begun to trust himself. The doors of the council chamber opened, and Ethan stepped inside. The room was vast, its walls shimmering with energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. Lyrians of every shape and size were seated around a circular table, their eyes fixed on him. Silence filled the room, heavy with expectation. Kael, the elder who had officiated his marriage, spoke first. "Human, you have arrived on our world. You have faced the journey here with guidance, yes, but also with your own strength. Now, you must demonstrate your understanding, courage, and wisdom. Your actions will determine whether this alliance can succeed." Ethan felt the weight of their gaze. He knew they would scrutinize every movement, every choice. But he also knew something had changed within him. The lessons from Lyra, the challenges he had faced, the trust he had learned to place in himself and her, all of it had prepared him for this moment. The first task was practical. Negotiate a solution to a trade dispute between two Lyrian districts. It was a delicate matter, requiring diplomacy, logic, and empathy. Humans had not been expected to master such negotiations quickly, but Ethan had learned more than he realized. He listened carefully to both sides, asked thoughtful questions, and proposed compromises that balanced interests without offending either party. The council members exchanged glances, murmuring among themselves. Ethan felt the tension in the room, but he did not falter. He remembered Lyra's words. Strength was not only in survival, it was in understanding and adapting. When he finished, Kael regarded him closely. "You have considered their needs, respected their culture, and offered solutions beyond what we anticipated. This is commendable." Ethan allowed himself a small sigh of relief, but the challenge was far from over. Next came the test of courage, a simulated crisis that required both strategy and bravery. A holographic display showed a dangerous situation, an unstable reactor threatening a Lyrian city. Ethan had to guide a team, make quick decisions, and ensure safety. His hands moved over the controls, recalling what he had learned from Lyra about anticipation and calm thinking. He directed the team, adjusted plans as the situation shifted, and found creative solutions to unexpected problems. When the simulation ended, the city had been saved, and the council's expressions shifted from skepticism to cautious approval. Finally, Kael spoke. "Human, you have shown understanding, courage, and adaptability. But the last test is your character. The alliance we seek is not only of strategy and strength, it is of trust. Tell us, why do you stand beside the princess willingly, despite your initial hesitation?" Ethan thought about the journey, about Lyra saving him from danger, guiding him, challenging him, teaching him. He thought about the partnership they had formed, the lessons he had learned, and the respect he had gained for her people. "I stand beside her," he said slowly, clearly, "because I have learned to trust her and to trust myself. Because I have seen what humans and Lyrians can accomplish together. And because I believe that this alliance is bigger than either of us alone. I stand beside her, not because I was forced, but because I choose to." The room was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the council members nodded, some with faint smiles, others with expressions of respect. Kael's eyes met Ethan's, and he inclined his head. "You have exceeded our expectations, human," Kael said. "Not only have you survived, but you have also proven the value of humanity. You are worthy of the alliance, and your actions honor both your people and ours." Ethan felt a rush of relief and pride. He had done more than survive. He had earned respect, shown courage, and proven that humans could stand as equals among the stars. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes bright. "You see now, Ethan. You are stronger than you realized. And together, we can accomplish more than either of us could alone. Ethan met her gaze. For the first time since the marriage, he truly felt a connection, not romantic, perhaps, but profound. Respect, trust, understanding, and partnership. She had made the first move, saving him and guiding him. Now, he had responded in kind, proving himself worthy not only to her, but to her people. Outside the council chamber, the city sparkled with life. Lyrians moved about their daily routines, their eyes filled with curiosity and admiration for the human who had faced their challenges with courage. Ethan walked beside Lyra, feeling a sense of accomplishment and newfound purpose. "Thank you," he said quietly. Lyra looked at him, her expression calm but warm. "You did this yourself. I guided you, yes. But you made the choices. You acted with courage, with wisdom, and with understanding. That is what matters." Ethan smiled. For the first time, he felt he truly belonged, not just as a visitor, not just as a diplomat, but as a partner. He realized that this marriage, which had begun against his will, had become an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to build a bridge between two worlds. As the twin moons rose over the city, casting soft light on the crystalline towers, Ethan felt a quiet joy. He had faced the unknown, adapted, survived, and proven himself. And through it all, Lyra had been by his side not as a ruler forcing obedience, but as a partner showing guidance, strength, and trust. He looked at her and realized something extraordinary. The first move she had made, the act of saving him, teaching him, guiding him, had changed everything. It had transformed fear into respect, resistance into trust, and a forced marriage into a partnership. Ethan knew that the journey was far from over. There would be more challenges, more unknowns, and perhaps more dangers. But he was no longer uncertain or powerless. With Lyra by his side, and with the lessons he had learned, he was ready for whatever lay ahead. The council had accepted him, the city had witnessed his courage, and for the first time, he truly believed in the potential of humanity. Humans were not just survivors, they could be partners, leaders, and equals in the vast universe. As they stood together, looking over the city from the palace balcony, Lyra spoke softly. "You have done more than survive, Ethan. You have grown. You have shown what humans can do. And for that, I respect you." Ethan looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. He had feared this marriage, resisted it, and doubted himself. But now he understood. The first move she made, the act that had seemed small at the time, had changed everything. And in responding to that move, he had changed too. The stars sparkled above. The city glowed below. And for the first time, Ethan felt that he was not just a human in an alien world. He was a partner, a bridge between two civilizations, and a part of something far greater than he had ever imagined. And in that moment, he realized that sometimes the first move, not just in battle or diplomacy, but in trust and understanding, could change everything.